I wanted to talk about Paradiso 29. This is a massive canto in Paradise. Um, there's something about theosis in Paradiso which is hard to understand, depending on your background. Perhaps if you're Orthodox Christian, it is more familiar, but in general, it's very easy to expect that Paradise should be this linear approach towards divinity, towards God, and culminating in this final flash of a union. What you're going to discover is that this is a repeated experience. The theosis is a relationship between your soul and the heavens and God, and it keeps evolving. And it's more like, as Dante describes it, when he connects with his inner Adam, which is kind of the root of his soul from the origins, which is when the soul is by nature in union with the heavenly from where it comes. So there is a memory in your soul of that loving union. And then also Adam says that since the pilgrim asks about the language indirectly of that union, Adam explains that that language is gone. You have to find a new one. Like things change. You're not the same soul as you were in the origins. You have more experience. You're a richer, you're a richer soul with more experience. So the union with the heavenly will be different every time. And he uses the image of like the sun, like going through the zenith, and then that's how the experience of a theosis should be like. That it comes to you and you experience and you sense it, and then it kind of, there's an ebb and flow. So you will have this many, many times, and every time it will be new, you'll have a new language in a way. So there is, not to have any like like the spoiler alert here, but you might discover towards the end that you've had this many times already in your life, but you have not understood it. You have taken it to be something else or just your own experience. But then as you go through Paradise, if you do it thoroughly and you build all the experiences, you will understand what has actually happened throughout your life, maybe. And it becomes more and more conscious. There's also another thing here with experience in itself, that if people say Paradiso is difficult to understand, there's potentially already a misunderstanding, because Paradiso is an experience. And then what Dante is doing, he's describing his experiences. So you can't approach the poem with your analytical mind and trying to understand it. You have to build the experiences through actually participate in the poetry and have this like evoking things in yourself. Okay, so, and because without those experiences in yourself, you don't build the capacity, and then when you come to the end, it's not going to stimulate things in you. So if you do this properly, there's going to be this an explosion of experience, more and more. But if you don't, it's going to be more flat. So this is the big challenge. And then again, so if it's hard to understand, it will be better to say it's hard to experience it. Because if you experience it, then you can describe it, and then it becomes very easy. That's kind of one of the shocking things, that suddenly you read a canto that you never understood, and it's just crystal clear. It's very simple to sense it and then to describe it yourself as well. Okay, so that's a lot about theosis, but then it will be a personal transformation. It will be a revolution. Also, once you start experiencing it, you will understand that what seemed impossible and miraculous beforehand is not that at all. it's it's just that you actually get to a natural relationship and experience of reality. It's almost like you just understand suddenly that, well, reality is a living, existing thing, and you are a part of it. And that's, in one sense, the whole change, instead of thinking I am living delineated from the world, looking at a dead uh, dead materialistic surrounding and universe without meaning and just billiard balls of atoms. But you see, no, reality is living, and then you are, of course, a part of that. And then suddenly thinking the other way becomes almost absurd. Like, why would you not? How you can't? How would you say that you're not a part of reality then? Like, are you outside of reality? So, anyways, but it will be a more spiritual feeling when you go through Paradiso and you understand the livingness of the heavenly and the divine, and kind of the all encompassing, like, again, divinity, God, as you would understand what Dante means with it. Okay, so it comes to a climax. So back to 29, Paradiso 29. This is the last canto of the prime mover. So I just wanted to go through or comment and show a little bit of the scene that is so extraordinary, because it is when, through a lot of training, Beatrice as his own soul, or your own soul, if you follow the book as like a practical manual for experience building, your own soul will develop a lot in terms of its capacity and as a faculty. So what happens is that Dante places Beatrice and the point of the everything that he discovers in the prime mover, the source of motion also, and they position each other like on two sides, like he says, like the moon, the moon and the sun, which is, consistently an image of of God and your soul. The moon reflects the sunlight. This is your soul reflecting the divine light. So they position each other on both sides, like in the horizon, and creating a belt along the horizon. And Beatrice, as his soul, is then just staring, fixed, transfixed with love, straight into the source of motion, the source of this point, as he says here. The yeah. Dove si appunta ogni ubi e ogni quando. So where you have every where and every when. So in short, then, your soul is just with love staring into the source of divinity. And then you get this just trance-like, oracle-like speech from the soul, Beatrice. From there on, this will be like just in the beginning, and then she keeps talking the rest of the canto, and she just starts describing the deepest of reality in a way that is almost impossible to comprehend. It's so deep. In two tercets, the soul then is describing the whole telos, the whole meaning, the purpose of being in itself, in terms of material reality, why there is a creation. Two tercets. Which makes you wonder, because Dante's argument would be that this is actually not his own words or thinking. This is what came through his own soul when he entered a very intense, deep form of theosis. And it's also interesting because this scene, when they are looking at each other, or like, we know implicitly that this is a mutual relationship, which makes the reason for why she says what she does both like an explanation and the reason for why it's happening, because that's when you get this idea of subsisto, that the creation is because to create loving relationships, that is the purpose of the creation at all, from God's vantage point. So to have a relationship, you need voluntary souls, free-willed souls or spirits, choosing to turn to and reflect, God's glory, to participate and to turn towards with love back to the divine, from where it comes in the beginning. And then you get this form of a double glory kind of reflection in a sort of a almost like a vibrating, glowing, living sense. And that makes, as Dante says, God's glory gives it the ability to say subsisto. So I'm going to read this in Italian because it's so spectacular. I have not seen this form of explanation anywhere ever. So it makes you wonder like, what kind of experience Dante has with this. But so when the soul then starts speaking, it's like you have like she's kind of, you have it on both sides, like you stretch out the space completely with the sun and the moon, and then si tacque Beatrice. This is so beautiful. It's like she silences, like she just goes quiet. Riguardando fisso nel punto che mi aveva vinto. So re-looking, fixated in the point that me had conquered, says the pilgrim. So you can think of the pilgrim in a sense as conscious experience. So she goes quiet, and then poi cominciò. Then she starts. And then the rest of like over 100 lines, just her direct channeling in this kind of otherworldly. The feeling of it is very, very special, let's say. So she starts with io dico e non dimando quel che tu vuoi udire. So I say and I do not ask that which you want to hear. Perché io l'ho visto là, because I have seen it there, dove si appunta, where it is kind of pointed or made into a point, ogni ubi e ogni quando, everywhere and every when. You can interpret this in many ways. One way would be that she doesn't need the pilgrim or the consciousness to say what it wants, because she's just channeling the ultimate reality, truth of existence and being in itself, which is by default what the consciousness seeks, to understand reality, to understand the world. And then non per aver a sé di bene acquista, so not to have for itself acquired goodness, che esser non può, which to be cannot happen, cannot what should it be? Yeah, is not possible. Ma perché suo splendore potesse, but because his splendor, his glory is allowed to, risplendendo, re-splendid, like re-shining, re-reflected in shining, dire subsisto, to say I exist, I subsist. That's one tercet. That's the point. That is why there is a creation at all. Everything flows from that. So then you have, because to do this, you need to have free will spirits, angels and souls. If you have free will spirits that can turn, then you also use the material world as kind of a testing ground, a playground, a means to express the spiritual physically. And there's always a back and forth between the spiritual and the material, so you can engage in the spiritual through the material. So that's why you need that. And then the whole of creation just starts playing itself out with this. And then you have the moral level at the bottom with the vices and virtues as part of that mechanism that is how you can choose or not choose to orient yourself. And then in sua eternità di tempo fore, in his eternity outside of time, the timelessness of God, fuor di ogni altro comprender, outside of every other comprehension, come i piacque, as it pleases, si aperse in nuovi amor l'eterno amore. It opens in new loves the eternal love. So this points to like how love, more in the sense of willing the good of the other, more than a romantic feeling, but that this is the ground force of motion at all, and also what actually makes reality happen. It's this, that the whole wants the best for the parts, and then the parts turn back and wants the best for the whole, then that is how it functions well. And then you get goodness and you get the love multiplied. So this nuovi amor is like this new love. So when a soul turns to the heavenly, if you do it yourself, then there will be this mutual amplification of the love, which just increases and enriches reality even further in a way that can't happen without relationships. So it turns back to this basic intention, the bigger telos of everything. So yeah, I think we're going to stop this one here. We just wanted to mention there's so much to talk about in this canto, Paradise 29, Paradiso 29, and just maybe let it sink in for now. The idea of theosis is a recurring thing. It can be mild, it can be strong. It will always have different natures because you change every time. And probably you will discover that you already had it many times in your life. Sometimes it can feel just like a weird experience. It can feel like a glimmer of something divine. And then suddenly it will all make sense. And then also, when you really do it in an intense way, as here, then the soul becomes almost transparent, and then just kind of channels with like this enormous force with pure insight from just divine wisdom, divine reality, and then also understanding the love. And we might add at the end here this idea that could also be a bit shocking, that this is introduced a little bit before, because the pilgrim has this little sense of a touch of the divine, a touch of contact in his awareness. And then afterward, you get this implicit explanation or suggestion that this matters for the heavenly. Like, in the sense that God cares about this. It's not like you shouldn't bother, like, you know, the divine because you're just a tiny little nothing. It's like, this is very important. It's wanted, it's hoped for, it's offered all the time, and when it happens, there's an enormous joy. So Saint Peter kind of, in a sense, also channels some of this in the eighth sphere, and that in a way also expresses this enormous joy from God if you choose to engage in this relationship. So this is also important to know that it is mutual. It's not just you who then hope for it, and you're like in internal gratitude and all of these things. Is actually a back and forth, which makes it then even more generative. So again, just to repeat that one line, si aperse in nuovi amor l'eterno amore. So it opens in new loves, the eternal love, every time this happens. Okay, so we're going to stop this one here. Hope some of this was interesting, and just leave a comment if you have any questions. I would love to read it and try to answer everything. So with that, hope you're still having a great day, and I'll be back soon with another video. Bye-bye.